Good evening and welcome to NYSILC's third annual New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame. We are thrilled to have you here with us. My name is Denise Denoto. These days, most of us are aware of how to navigate Zoom, but just in case, I would like to start by going through an overview of some of Zoom's features. All attendees are in listen-only mode for this evening's presentation. You will find the attendee control bar at the bottom of the screen, activated by moving your cursor. The sign language interpreters have been pinned to the top of your screen for the duration of our agenda this evening. In addition, closed captioning is available as an option in real time, and you will find this at the bottom of the screen by clicking on the closed caption button and choosing Show Subtitles. For accessibility purposes, the chat feature has been disabled. If you have any questions or technical difficulties throughout the presentation, please email nysilc111@gmail.com and a member of our team will assist you right away. If you are interested in congratulating this year's inductees, we welcome you to post your regards to one of our social platforms. You can find us on Facebook at New York State Independent Living Council, Inc., or on Twitter at New York State ILC, or on LinkedIn at New York State Independent Living Council, Inc. Thank you for joining us early as we give special recognitions to our sponsors, without whom this event would not be possible. Our sponsors include Able Newspaper, Association Development Group, ADG Creative, Bronx Independent Living Services, Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, Consumer Directed Choices, Finger Lakes Independence Center, Northern Regional Center for Independent Living, New York Association on Independent Living, Open Doors, Piero, Counter, and Strauss Incorporated, Resource Center for Accessible Living, Trustco Bank, United Spinal Association, Viscardi Center, Westchester Disabled on the Move, Inc., Western New York Independent Living. We thank all of you for your generous support of tonight's event. As much as we wish we could all be together in person tonight, we would like to kick off our pre-event showcase with a video from our first ever class of inductees in 2018.
This newly formed Hall of Fame, which is, it's really hard for me to put into words. I'm feeling very emotional, which is it's not like my usual thing.
This is the inaugural Disability Rights Hall of Fame induction. We're just so excited that we can finally recognize some of the really key and important players who have been so powerful and impactful.
To understand the movers and shakers in our own history is critical to protecting our movement.
And, we all see the difference it makes in people's lives, and that's something we can celebrate tonight, as well as we celebrate all the people that make that happen.
It's a wonderful opportunity to step back and recognize how far the disability community has come and to honor the achievements of people who have paved the way to the future.
True leaders are not just in it for themselves. They don't try creating something that's going to die with them. They walk ahead of us. They lay the path for us to follow so that we can carry on the mission when they're gone.
And the fight never ends until that moment comes that we step across that doorway onto the next plane.
We have battles, people. We have real battles to fight. How we will survive, how people will get care. they need.
Because no person stands alone in the struggles of equal rights for any one person.
This was for all of those in her life who inspired her, loved her, encouraged her, and worked side by side with her, changing the world one person at a time.
Helping others and making things possible for people with disabilities.
To just say that, these are the pioneers in the movement. These are the people who were here before there was an ADA and before there was a Section 504 of the Rehab Act.
It's a wonderful thing to do this in New York. This is the hotbed of disability rights. Everybody thinks it's Berkeley. We know the truth. Thanks, everybody.
And now some messages from our sponsors. Able newspaper congratulates NYSILC and their very worthy Hall of Fame inductees: James Weissman, Edith Prentiss, Susan Scheer, Melvyn Tanzman, Robert Gumson. Able newspaper logo, www.ablenews.com. Thank you for inspiring us, Robert Gumson, Edith Prentiss, Susan Scheer, Melvyn Tanzman, James Weissman. Congratulations on your induction into the NYSILC Hall of Fame. The team at the Association Development Group admires your accomplishments and appreciates your dedication to making a positive impact on people with disabilities in our society. You are an inspiration to us as we look to the future while celebrating our 25th year as a woman-owned business serving the nonprofit and association communities. Like you, we are passionate about making the world a better place. ADG, where nonprofits go to get things done. adgcommunications.com. Logo celebrating 25 years of ADG. Bronx Independent Living Services. Logo. Bronx Independent Living Services would like to congratulate everyone being inducted into the Hall of Fame. We would like to especially acknowledge Edith and her contributions to our community. Edith will be greatly missed, but never forgotten. BCD honors the wonderful allies, leaders, and friends who richly deserve induction into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame. From the subways to taxis, to employment, to parks, to straws, they have led the fight for true accessibility in New York City and across the state. BCID, Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, logo. Photo of Jim Weissman, Susan Scheer, and Edith Prentiss, and Mel Tanzman and Bob Gumson. Consumer Directed Choices would like to congratulate each member of the 2020-2021 Disability Rights Hall of Fame class. Our mission of empowering independence for seniors, people with disabilities, and their families is not possible without the collective efforts of these advocates. cdchoices.org. By consumers, for consumers. Consumer Directed Choices logo, empowering independence. Finger Lakes Independence Center, 215 5th Street, Ithaca, New York, 14850. Flick logo. Opening Doors to Independence. Robert Meek, Board President. Jan Lynch, Executive Director. Northern Regional Center for Independent Living, NERCL logo, your Disability Rights and Resource Center. Congratulations to the 2021 Disability Hall of Fame inductees. Your work continues to inspire us in our commitment to the independent living movement. And now, a video from the New York Association on Independent Living.
Along with the civil rights and women's movements of the 1960s and 70s, the independent living movement in New York was growing. In 1978, the late Pat Figueroa opened New York's first independent living center. His wife Denise grew up with her disability.
I had the experience of not being able to get into most places that I wanted to go to, not being able to find accessible transportation. It was okay to discriminate against you, you know, to say you can't come in if you couldn't physically get into the building, or even not to serve people.
As ILCs began to open across the state, advocacy was a core service, leading to authorized state funding for the ILCs in New York. The movement was able to get the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act written into state law. It helped the nursing home transition and diversion program secure a Medicaid waiver, and was the driving force behind the Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program.
If you look at the CDPA program that started here in New York, it's really people with disabilities taking something that is medical model and bringing it out into society. To me, that's a huge change.
In 2001, creation of the statewide Systems Advocacy Network brought the movement's advocacy to a new level.
That took the power of a whole bunch of individual advocates and put it together to form a really tight and strong network of advocates that could work on issues together.
One ever-present issue is changing people's opinions and expectations.
It's couched in the sense that you can't do things. Even our language, when you say, you know, your car is disabled, it means it's not working, right? People don't expect us to go to work.
Folks in our community feel oftentimes like second-class citizens. I myself am questioned on a daily basis if I need help. Can I, you know, oh, you work, you know, oh, you drive. I do all these things.
The widespread perception is not the reality. In fact, greater access helps everyone.
Well, the most sort of generic example are curb cuts. Curb cuts help everybody. It's not just a wheelchair user. It helps mothers in their carriages. It helps people, you know, when they're trying to load a store or whatever, and they need, and they're pulling a big trolley or a big cart or whatever. It helps everybody, and that list goes on and on.
As does the advocacy go on.
One of our greatest needs right now is systems advocacy, and in particular, the managed long-term care system was not designed to provide support to the most disabled individuals in New York State. So many of our folks are falling through the cracks.
Getting people in the workplace with the support of government, with giving incentives to employers to employ people with disabilities is pretty key.
So I think attitudinally, a lot more work needs to be done.
I think it's really important to look toward young people with disabilities so that, you know, we can cater specifically to them, but also really bring up the next generation of disability rights leaders.
And continue the movement to a place where perception is the reality. And
if you're developing a piece of legislation, you're going to automatically be thinking of the needs of people with disabilities along with everybody else whose needs you're trying to meet. You're going to automatically think of all those things without anybody prompting you, without anybody trying to get you to see a vision that we see, because your vision will be ours.
Piero, Connor, and Strauss, LLC, strives to make a difference in the lives of people with disabilities. Types of services include guardianship, estate planning, including use of supplemental needs trusts, benefits counseling, Medicaid application and advocacy, advocacy with the government and not-for-profit agencies. www.pierolaw.com, 43 British American Boulevard, Latham, New York, 12110. For a free consultation, call 518-491-2100. RCAL, Resource Center for Accessible Living, Inc. RCAL logo. Trustco Bank, your hometown bank. '75 Building an Inclusive World, United Spinal Association. Congratulations from your friends at United Spinal. The Viscardi Center, empowering, is a network of nonprofits dedicated to educating, employing, and empowering people with disabilities. We offer a lifespan of programs and services for children and adults, including pre-K through high school education, age 21, youth transition services, day habilitation without walls, vocational training, employment placement, assistive technology, digital accessibility services, workforce diversification assistance, located at 201 Willits Road in Albertson. Can be reached at viscardicenter.org or 516-465-1400. And now, a video from Westchester Disabled on the Move, Incorporated.
And Westchester Disabled on the Move helped us see that there was someone that we could go to, that we could come for information and that we could come for support, and someone who would really be like a Greek god in Odysseus' Troy, someone who would just stand up for us and tell us what could be done.
I feel Westchester Disabled on the Move went above and beyond their expectations by coming to the nursing home, meeting with me, and letting the nursing home know that I do not require to be there. I should be home in the community with everybody else living a very fruitful life.
All I have to say, every step of the way they went above and beyond. Anytime I needed to speak to someone, I never thought, oh, it's too late, I can't call anybody. And they were just available for us at all times.
They got me a home back in Yonkers, my regular hometown, where I was born and raised. They got me where I get a car with assistive technology where I could drive every day.
I'll see you. Don't worry. We'll call the person. We'll be there and we will do things for you.
Yeah.
It's felt amazing to come back to this. I always loved driving since I was a kid. I always loved driving. I always been driving since I was 16. Even got my driver's license, I got my permit at 16. So this was always me. So after my accident, I didn't think I'd be able to drive again.
A message from New York State Senator Shelley Mayer to Disability Hall of Fame inductee Mel Tanzman. I am grateful to my friend and colleague Mel Tanzman for his lifetime of work breaking down barriers for people with disabilities and teaching us how to be more thoughtful of and responsive to the needs and rights of all members of our community. Mel's dedication and passion make him a formidable advocate and someone Westchester Disabled on the Move was lucky to have on its side for more than 20 years. I will miss working with him and learning from him. WestchesterDisabledOnTheMove.org. Congratulations to this year's inductees from the Western New York Independent Living, Inc. family of agencies: Independent Living Center, Independent Living of the Genesee Region, Independent Living of Niagara County, Peer Connection, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And now a video from the 2019 Hall of Fame event. We'd like to thank you all for joining us for this pre-event showcase, and thank you again to all of tonight's sponsors.
Passion. We are inducting tonight. New York State is a better place for people with disabilities.
I can't separate being a person with a disability from being anything else, you know.
Because we have to survive.
this evening to accept me. And yet,
Because the leaders don't matter if the other people don't come and help. We need leaders to help motivate people, but we need people.
you could see how incredible it was.
These are my people. Let independent living.
Welcome, everyone, to this evening's virtual 2021 Disability Rights Hall of Fame. My name is Clifton Perez. I was a 2018 inaugural inductee into the Disability Rights Hall of Fame. We are pleased and happy that all of you were able to join us this year to honor our new inductees to the Disability Rights Hall of Fame. Without any further ado, to introduce this year's honorees, I am pleased to welcome my dear friend and also activist and advocate in her own right, Mistress of Ceremony, Miss Denise Denoto.
Thank you, Cliff, for a wonderful introduction. I am thrilled to be moderating tonight's awards presentation. I would like to start once again by thanking our sponsors whose support helps make events like this tonight possible. They include Able Newspaper, Association Development Group, ADG Creative, Bronx Independent Living Services, Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, Consumer Directed Choices, Finger Lakes Independence Center, Northern Regional Center for Independent Living, New York Association on Independent Living, Open Doors, Piero, Connor, and Strauss Incorporated, Resource Center for Accessible Living, Trustco Bank, United Spinal Association, Viscardi Center, Westchester Disabled on the Move, Inc., and Western New York Independent Living. I would also like to thank our 2020-2021 Honorary Committee, which was chaired this year by Douglas J. Uziak. Also on the committee, Marietta Austin, Joe Bravo, Denise Denoto, Lynn Drucker, Chad Eldred, Zach Garofalo, Peggy Gross, Robert Gumson, Richard J. Koch, Assemblyman Brian Kolb, Alan Krieger, Barbara Bobby Lynn, Jeanette Lynch, Elizabeth Martin, Brian O'Malley, Robert Meek, Anthony Mignoni, Cliff Perez, Ann Scherf, Congressman Paul D. Tonko, Kathleen Vandeloo, Marvin Wasserman, Brad Williams, Amy Wink, Michelle Weiss, and John Zick. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for joining us this evening to celebrate this year's inductees. Tonight, we will be honoring the achievements of Robert Gumson, Edith Prentiss, posthumously, Susan Scheer, Melvyn Tanzman, and James Weissman. All five will be inducted into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame as the class of 2020-2021. Our peers have been advocating their entire lives, and the arc of their achievements span decades. Their individual bios can be found online at the NYSILC website under Programs, Hall of Fame, and Inductees. These bios help to capture the impact of their lifelong work. All inductees were sent their Hall of Fame awards in advance of tonight's ceremony. The award is a black crystal wedge with a gold laurel leaf at the top, signifying achievement. Additionally, Representative Paul Tonko of the 20th Congressional District of New York has awarded each recipient a congressional certificate that they will be receiving in the coming weeks. This evening, we will hear pre-recorded acceptance speeches from the honorees. So let's get started with tonight's induction ceremony. I am proud to induct Robert Gumson into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame as a member of the class of 2020-21. Here is Bob Gunson accepting his award.
I am blessed and honored to be inducted into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame. I have all my life been an advocate from my earliest childhood growing up in Brooklyn through my career years and on into retirement. Growing up in Brooklyn, my family was not schooled in raising a kid with a disability. They learned by the seat of their pants. Somehow, intuitively, they found the way to help me to believe that a disability was no more than an inconvenience. As a child, I learned how to talk truth to power. From the earliest childhood experience that I could remember of doing so, I was brought to a meeting with a summer camp director who really didn't want me to attend his camp because of my vision loss. My dad and he bantered back and forth in the office, and then he got to a point where he finally said, really, this is in Bobby's own best interest. What happens if he falls? And that's when it hit me. I just got up from my seat and I said, I'll get up. And that's what I've done all my life. I've gotten up, knocked down, get up. Knock down again, get up again. These are the lessons that a person with a disability of any kind needs to learn. We had the same talking truth to power when my family and I had to confront the New York City public schools to keep me mainstreamed in my local school. We fought tooth and nail to keep me in the public school while my vision was being lost. And there was no special education at the time. But New York City Board of Education found itinerant teachers who came into the school and pulled me out of the class to teach me skills of blindness and to teach me Braille, which was my saving grace in life. Anybody with a vision loss that prevents them from reading regular print, I couldn't recommend more strongly to learn Braille. No matter how much we advance in the digital age and technology, I can tell you that I couldn't have had my 3 daughters in turn sit on my lap with a Braille and print book reading to them. There's no way you can do that if you're relying on digital speech format. I will always be grateful to have the opportunity to learn Braille. My trajectory in my career took me to Massachusetts for graduate school and then on to the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. I learned advocacy from giants of advocacy, but mostly I learned from a young woman that I shared an office with named Cindy Miller, who lived with muscular dystrophy and would go down with us to nickel conferences in Washington and demonstrate. And she taught her personal care assistants to walk away from her and leave her completely, utterly vulnerable to the Washington, D.C. police, to force them to understand what it required to provide the care for a person with a significant disability. She was a pioneer, and she was probably one of my heroes that taught me how to talk truth to power. I walked a fine line at times working when I came to New York State in the independent living movement. I knew my agency, when they hired me, truly wanted a voice of people with disabilities, but I had never worked for an independent living center. And when I say I walked a fine line, I had to please the people in state ed who had often very different ideas and approaches to disability issues and concerns. And I had to find my conscience many times over the years and take the risks that were necessary to be true to my brothers and sisters in the disability rights movement, because I knew without an inside voice, without an inside caring, concerned person for what happens to the disability rights movement and independent living centers, the advancements that we made over the years would not have been possible. Over time, I was challenged. I should be, but I tried to be fair, I tried to be honest, and I tried to be true to the movement. Over the years, I worked with some fabulous people, incredible advocates who took chances, took risks to keep the voice at the table. And that's what we need. We need a voice at the table at all times, because we are a system that is cast away and cast out and often overlooked. I have taken the time during COVID to prepare my memoir. It's moving quickly toward finalization and production, and it should be released in 2021 in book form. If things stand, it will be called In Blind Sight. So once again, I thank you all. I dedicate my induction to my parents who worked so hard throughout my life to make me the person that I am. I dedicate it to my family, my children, my wife. I'm in great appreciation of the work that you do every day, and I have your back. Thank you.
Congratulations, Bob. Next, I am proud to induct Edith Prentiss into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame posthumously as a 2020-2021 member. Edith passed away earlier this year on March 16th, 2021. She knew she was a member of this class. Here is Victor Kalisini, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, accepting this award on behalf of Edith and her family.
Hello, everyone. I'm Victor Kalisini. I am the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities in New York City. I want to thank the New York State Independent Living Council for recognizing Edith Prentiss for the 2021 New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame. I want to congratulate all the other inductees, Robert Gumson, Susan Scheer, Melvyn Tanzman, and Jim Weissman, who are all great advocates. I want to talk a little bit about Edith Prentiss. Edith Prentiss was an amazing person who unfortunately passed away this March. If we think about all the great things that were said about her through the Daily News that said Edith Prentiss was a champion and supreme person with a disability. And the New York Times, Edith Prentiss, a fierce voice for disabled New Yorkers, dies at the age of 69. New York One reported on her and talked about how great she was. Edith was involved in so many different things. She was part of the 504 Democratic Club, the New York State Independent Living Council, which is here today, Community Board 12, and really being at the root of our community and really being involved in showing that people with disabilities need to be involved at every level. Manhattan Borough President, Disability Task Force, Permanent Citizen Advisory Committee for the MTA and New York City Transit Riders Council, the MTA New York City Transit Advisory Committee for Transit Accessibility, the Long Island Railroad ADA Task Force, New York City Office of Emergency Management Special Needs Task Force, and Washington Heights and Edgewood Council for the Aging. There wasn't an issue that Edith didn't know about. She was well-versed in everything, and so many times the smartest person in the room. There are so many things that come to mind, but she was an advocate that was gruff, straightforward, knowledgeable, unapologetic, and in your face constantly. I remember recently seeing a picture of her, and it was with Andy Byford, who put together a fast forward plan, which was a plan to make New York City subway accessible. And all these elected officials And right in the center of it all was Edith Prentiss. And you could see that they were listening intently because they knew if they didn't get it right, Edith was going to go after them because that's the type of advocate she was. I remember being in rooms with her and realizing, uh-oh, here it comes, because you didn't know what was going to come out. But what you did know what was going to come out was that she was not going to say or take no for an answer, that she wanted people to know that people with disabilities were part of society, that they needed to be included in everything that everyone offered. And she was not just about wheelchair users. Although she was in a wheelchair, she advocated for anyone and everyone. The issues were never about her and only about the community. She was not selfish and she was always giving. And she loved New York City and knew what its potential was, even when the city and its built environment did not allow her to do it. She realized that New York City was great. She realized that it could live up to its potential. And I've done everything in my power to make sure that her issues were heard. She shaped a lot of different things throughout New York City. She shaped accessible parks and programs, communities and community board engagement, accessible taxis, for-hire vehicles, get out the disability vote, Local Law 28, Local Law 27, Local Law 47. She helped me put together a snow summit, the ADA 25, and our celebration that we did big. The Disability Pride Parade, I remember talking to her about this, and she really was the one that pushed for this and told me there were other organizations out there and that we needed to put this together. She knew MTA matters up and down, and in times of support, I called Edith Prentiss. And Edith Prentiss wrote one of her last pieces of advocacy with us was to elevate transit accessibility that would allow the city and the state to incentivize developers to install easements into elevators. And how fitting it was for that to be her last advocacy issue because she cared about transit so much. And I'm going to leave you with the story of Edith, and it has to do with transit. It was a memorable time for me, and I just started to ride the subway stations. And I thought I was so cool transferring from one station to another at 42nd Street. And I was on the 4-5. I took the 2 train and transferred to the 456 train. I thought I was like, all right, I got this. And all of a sudden I hop in an elevator and I have no idea where I am. I start getting really anxious and I get off at one floor and I realize this isn't where I'm supposed to be. I turn around, I get back into the elevator. And I get out, and at this point, I am absolutely afraid and not sure what to do. And who do I see? This woman in a power wheelchair, basically with a halo on, and it's glowing. And it was Edith Prentiss. And I say, Edith, help me. I'm lost. And with Edith's smile and her like, hello, Victor, why don't you know where you're going? And points me in the right direction. Is what I'll always remember about Edith. I got to the spot where I needed to be, and it was because of Edith. Her advocacy will live on. I will do everything in my power to ensure that she's remembered, and I just don't know what I'm going to do without her. So thank you, New York State Independent Living Council, for empowering New Yorkers to live a meaningful life and realize that disability is what it's all about. And I gladly accept this Disability Rights Hall of Fame Award on behalf of Edith Prentiss. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. We would like to say congratulations to Edith and her legacy. Next, I am proud to induct Susan Scheer into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame as a member of the class of 2020-2021. Here is Susan accepting her award.
I want to thank NYSILC for creating the Disability Rights Hall of Fame, for sponsoring this remote ceremony, and for bestowing this honor on me. I also want to congratulate my fellow inductees with whom I've long enjoyed fighting the good fight. I especially want to express my gratitude to my husband, Josh, and my daughter, Melissa, for their unstinting support of my disability advocacy work. I'm proud that my husband now includes ableism in his high school English curriculum, and that my daughter is already a fierce disability rights advocate, soon to be armed with a law degree to extend her reach. I was the same age as my daughter is now, 25, when I started down the road of what proved to be my calling. In my first job after college at the New York City Department of Transportation in 1987, I was tapped to help design, implement, and eventually run the city's paratransit system, which we dubbed Accessoride. I quickly learned about the agenda-setting power of New York City's loud and proud disability community, how critical accessible transportation was to full inclusion, and that government was where the rubber met the road when it came to disability rights. After 3 years of contentious public meetings at which the disability community schooled everyone, myself included, on what equitable treatment meant, the service finally launched. Where there had been no options, now there was 24/7, door-to-door, citywide accessible transportation. A year later, we had delivered 300,000 trips to school, work, medical appointments, and family get-togethers. Today, that number is 6 million trips annually. I was hooked, and the whole experience had a powerful impact on me, leaving scars that I'm pretty sure I didn't have before. I learned our community's history and how, with lawsuits, patience, and a good sense of humor, we could bend the arc towards justice. I also discovered that being a voice inside government for the disability community suited me. As my government colleagues grew closer to me, they also became more comfortable with our community. Over the decades working for multiple city agencies, I was able, as the only person with a disability in a senior role, to influence decisions that broadly impacted hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers with disabilities. As someone who grew up without any female role models with a disability, I was fortunate enough to benefit from the mentorship of some strong women. Advocates like Ann Emmerman, Frida Zanes, and Nadina Laspina refused to let anyone tell them to, quote unquote, stay in their place. Instead, they spent their days and nights leading our community in battle. At a time when there were no women leaders with a visible disability in city government, their efforts had paved the way for me to hold the Accessoride position, and their guidance helped me find my voice as an advocate. Accessoride also taught me that our work is never finished. 30 years later, we're still seeking better quality service on what's now commonly known as Stressoride. That's why, while it's important to celebrate our accomplishments on occasions like this, we all know how much is left to do, especially now and especially in the area of employment. At our organization, the Institute for Career Development, which helps New Yorkers with disabilities access employment, we've seen firsthand that our community has been suffering some of the steepest economic losses and hardships from the COVID-19 pandemic. We were more likely to lose our jobs, and we will be slower to regain them. Even pre-COVID, 70% of people with disabilities weren't in the workforce, and the unemployment rate was 2.5 times that of folks without a disability. Working age people with disabilities in New York City were also more than twice as likely to live in poverty as people without disabilities. Those statistics have been virtually unchanged for 30 years, even during the longest economic expansion in US history. We've successfully focused as a community on so many fundamental foundational issues: healthcare, housing, transportation, education. The next frontier is employment and economic empowerment. Disability should be celebrated as a form of diversity that adds value to any organization. We should be seen as adding something, not lacking something. People with disabilities must have a seat at the table as government and business plan their comebacks from the pandemic. We have the opportunity and the responsibility to make sure that equity and inclusion for individuals with disabilities are part of the economic recovery process from the start. so that the next generation of young people with disabilities can have their seats at the head of the table. As my mother and advocacy hero always said, onward and upward.
Congratulations once again, Susan. Now we are going to have a brief message from Westchester Disabled on the Move, Incorporated.
My name is Amy OHara, and I am the current president of the board of Westchester Disabled on the Move. On behalf of my board, I wish to congratulate all of this year's honorees to the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame, and especially Mel Tanzman. Mel, who recently retired from our organization, dedicated over 20 years of his career to Westchester Disabled on the Move. His tireless passion and dedication improved the lives of countless individuals in Westchester County to live lives of independence, self-worth, and gratitude. And for this, we thank him. Well-deserved, Mel. Congratulations.
Hello, Mel. In 1999, when you joined Westchester Disabled on the Move, also known as WIDOMI, you started the newsletter On the Move. I have a copy here. You stated your commitment to advocating for changes to systems that impact people with disabilities, especially housing, personal assistance, healthcare. Fast forward almost 21 years later, and WIDOMI faces the same challenges. But thanks to your dedication, we have grown to become a beacon of hope and advocacy in the community. 3 staff members wanted to join in and let you know you are missed. Carol, our receptionist, says, Mel Tanzman was not only a powerful force in advocating for the rights of people with disabilities, addressing accessibility issues. He was a mentor for me personally as advocating and serving as chair on the Yonkers Mayor's Disability Advisory Board, which is now a big part of my life. Yao, our assistant director, says, healthy, successful, and efficient organizations are made up of healthy relationships between executives and their staff. Mel was not the boss who bossed. He got in touch with everyone and encouraged a great working environment. Joe, our office manager, says the dedication and commitment that Mel exhibited for all consumers who came to our doors for assistance was a wonder. Talking about doors, 21 years ago, you wrote, "My door is always open." And I can attest personally that it always was, literally always open, including our front door to anyone, staff or consumer. When we had to close our doors to the public in March 2020, it was a sad and profound blow to that tradition. But not to worry, Mel. As soon as it is safe to do so, we will be the first to throw our doors open and welcome all, just like we did when you were here. And as you've taught us, we are going to follow what your favorite band, Grateful Dead, said. Say what I mean, and I don't give a damn. I do believe, and I am who I am. Thank you, Mel.
I am proud to induct Melvyn Tanzman into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame as a member of the class of 2020-2021. Here is Mel accepting his award.
Good evening, friends and colleagues. I'm really humbled to be inducted into the Disability Rights Hall of Fame, to join such leaders and mentors as Marilyn Saviola, Anna Fay, Pat Figueroa, and Jim Weissman is truly an honor for me. I hope that my efforts to protect and expand community-based long-term care services and affordable, accessible housing have contributed to much-needed change. I know today we are faced with many challenges. The impact of COVID-19 on people with disabilities, cuts to Medicaid, particularly home care, and changes to the consumer-directed personal assistance program. with IL budgets also being cut. When facing these threats, we really must recommit to the advocacy mission of independent living centers and our allies. When I look at my colleagues who have been inducted, there's one commonality I've noticed. About 5 of the folks who are in the Disability Rights Hall of Fame at one point in their advocacy career worked for either the Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association or United Spinal. The support of the leadership for our advocacy efforts in civil rights and independent living services allowed me and others to dedicate ourselves to policies that advance the status of individuals with disabilities. I do believe that this organization should have a place someday in the Disability Rights Hall of Fame. For me, my passion was Medicaid and community-based long-term care and fair and affordable integrated housing. My commitment to home and community-based services is personal as well as professional. Members of my family have been victims to policies that favored institutional services. I recently spent a month in Florida helping my 94-year-old mother-in-law avoid placement in a skilled nursing facility and arrange for a setting that was more integrated. Having said that, I believe that now is the time for passage of the Disability Integration Act, which would strengthen the integration mandate of Homestead and create a federal civil rights law which addresses the civil rights of people with disabilities who are stuck in nursing homes and other institutions. As our nation faces health and economic challenges, I believe we must fight to assure the budget choices support our independence and do not threaten our civil rights. On that note, have a wonderful rest of the evening and a wonderful gala.
Congratulations, Mel. Finally, and certainly not least, I am proud to induct James Weissman into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame as a 2020-2021 class member. Here is James accepting his award.
I'm proud and honored to be included with this group of inductees to the Disability Rights Hall of Fame. It saddens me to think that fellow inductee Edith Prentiss, with whom I've worked side by side on so many advocacy issues, will be unable to enjoy this honor. My first job as a lawyer was working with Paul Hearn, my friend since teenage years, who had osteogenesis imperfecta. We got a grant to open a legal services office that was architecturally accessible to poor people with physical disabilities. We expected to be handling landlord-tenant, domestic relations, and benefits disputes. And we did. But in the door came huge systemic problems. Denials of housing, employment, transportation, education, extensions of credit, and admission to places of public accommodation, even those run by government, were the norm. Paul said to me in '77, "You do transportation, I'll do employment." He said it as if we actually could accomplish something. In '79, I went to work in a division of Governor Carey's office. Our office in the World Trade Center hosted a meeting of disability advocates. My boss told me off in front of Vietnam-era paralyzed veteran Terry Moakley, a Hall of Fame inductee of a few years ago, for taking the side of people with disabilities. Terry followed me to the men's room and asked if I was happy with the new job. The next day, I got an offer from Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association, now called United Spinal Association, where I've worked for the past 42 years. In '79, EPVA sued MTA to make buses and subways accessible. No newspaper editorial board supported us. MTA, in its motion to dismiss our case, argued that it does not post signs that say no handicapped allowed, and it permits people to crawl onto buses and trains if they have to. No liability, they said, because non-discrimination required only passive behavior. We argued the state's non-discrimination law required that when MTA bought buses or built or renovated stations, they had to buy, build, and renovate accessibly. That is, in a non-discriminatory manner. not merely continue business as usual if the state's non-discrimination mandate meant anything. In '84, we settled. And in '88, we settled with Philadelphia's transit system. We got lifts on buses, paratransit, and at least key rail stations to be made accessible in the two oldest, largest rail systems in the United States. Lots of smaller discrimination cases came our way. A singles dance wouldn't sell tickets to a wheelchair user. A public pool denied admission to a resident when the only requirement for admission was residency because she used a wheelchair. A college charged a dorm student double because his wheelchair took up too much room. A Central Park West co-op wouldn't allow a resident to pay for a ramp because her neighbors didn't want the building to look like a hospital. The disability rights community, including disabled Vietnam veterans, kept pushing, and in '88, the Americans with Disabilities Act was introduced for the first time. George H.W. Bush was campaigning for president, supporting the ADA, which would have to be reintroduced during the next Congress. The ADA gave me a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work with advocates from all over the U.S. with varying disabilities in one coordinated effort to educate Congresspeople and their staffs about the history of isolation, segregation, and discrimination endured by those with disabilities in the United States. Advocacy efforts created a national collective consciousness of the needs and rights of people with disabilities. New York City's curb ramps, accessible taxis, and developing an ADA consulting service for the community, architects, and developers became important post-ADA responsibilities for United Spinal and me. 18 years ago, EPVA became United Spinal Association, now a 58,000-member national organization with 50 chapters and a presence on Capitol Hill. Leading United Spinal Association as CEO for the past 7 years has been a privilege and an honor. Thank you to NYSILC, to all my fellow advocates, and to everyone who has made an effort to accommodate people with disabilities.
Congratulations, Jim. Now, if we were together in person, as we hope to be again soon, I've been encouraging all of you to help me give a toast to all of this year's inductees by raising your glass. Now, I happen to have tea in my glass. Maybe some of you have water or coffee or juice or something stronger. But please join me in raising a toast to all of our inductees. Let's have one final round of applause for our 2020-2021 inductees to the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame. Before we sign off for the night, it is now time to pick our raffle basket winners. When you purchase your tickets for tonight's event, some of you have the ability to purchase extra tickets to help support tonight's event in the hopes that you will be able to win gift baskets. We are excited to be able to offer you our first basket this evening, a relaxing coast and coconut spa set. This basket will make you feel like you are sitting next to the ocean. And with 42 entries to win this basket, the winner is randomly selected Keith. Congratulations, Keith. We will be in touch with you about picking up your prize. Our next basket is a signature chocolate basket. And I have to admit, I did put some extra tickets into this basket, featuring Godiva chocolates and a scrumptious assortment of chocolate truffles. And with 59 entries, the winner of this basket is not Denise Sonoda, but Kathleen Reedy. Congratulations, Kathleen. Basket number 3 is a movie night with popcorn and candy. This nostalgic popcorn tub is filled with favorites. And with 46 entries, the winner is Joseph Rappaport. Congratulations, Joseph. Our next basket, basket number 5, is a big basket. Ooh, featuring wine. And a goodie bag of cookies, snack mix, and lemon cakes. Ooh, I think truffles in there too. With 75 entries in this basket, the winner is Ann Scheer. Congratulations, Ann. And our last baskets of the evening come from the NYSILC Board of Directors. We have 2 baskets of board games to give away, including Spontaneous Timeline, the 5-second rule, and puzzles and more. With 55 entries, the winner is Renee Kimball. Congratulations, Renee. And for our second board game basket, Katie Carroll. Congratulations, Katie. NYSILC staff will be in touch with each of our winners to get addresses so we can ship you your winning baskets. That is the end of our event this evening. I would like to thank you all for joining us. It has been my honor to welcome this year's class of inductees into the Disability Rights Hall of Fame and to MC tonight's event. I would now like to turn it back over to Cliff Perez for some closing remarks. Cliff?
I want to take this time to congratulate the inductees, this year's inductees into the New York State Disability Rights Hall of Fame. I want to thank Denise for the marvelous job you have done, Denise, the Honorary Committee, sponsors, the virtual guests. I look forward to seeing all of you in person next year. Call for nominations is in October. So please send in all of your nominations and have a very pleasant evening and good night.